desiring marriage is not a problem. And I know that obviously Single Besties Podcast. So like people who are listening to this podcast are single, and I don't want them to think that their desire for marriage is bad, because it's absolutely not. That's a great thing to desire. It's a great thing to want. The church and just culture in general has always said that like women don't really matter. They don't have a voice if they're not partnered with somebody.
Hi, besties. Welcome back to the Single Besties Podcast. I'm your host, Montana Duran, and today we have a very special guest, Hanna Ward. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited too. Guys, she's not a single bestie. She's actually married and just had a little baby tater tot.
Yes.
But she has, she has a lot of wisdom for us, and I am so excited for this chat. We do start the podcast with a question. So, when is the last time you went on a date?
Let's see, the last time I went on a date was about a month ago. We really try to do like monthly dates. But also, I meant before I answered that, I meant to tell you, thank you so much for having me as a guest on this podcast. Like, I've been so excited about your relaunch, your rebrand. We've obviously been friends for a long time, and just like watching the just trajectory of this podcast go to where it has gotten. I just really feel like you are in your like prime. You're in the arena that you're supposed to be in, and just like walking in that path. And it's like so cool to see you do that. Like, I'm just obsessed with all of the rebrand, the relaunch, and everything. And the new people listening are like, what are you even talking about? And it doesn't even matter. We're at where you need to be right now. So it's just been really cool to watch, and I'm just like really proud of you and just honored to be a guest on the podcast. So thank you.
It's so crazy because I never deleted any of the other ones because I feel like that would be inauthentic to delete the old
Yeah,
ones,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, for
I
sure.
think it led me to where I
To
am
this
supposed to
point,
be
yeah,
now.
totally.
But our first original podcast was on the day you launched your podcast. Do you remember that?
Oh my God, no, but you're totally right. It was. I forgot it was that day that I had released it. That's crazy. Oh my gosh, we've been in this for so long.
So long. It's so crazy too because I interviewed a guy earlier this week and he was like one of my first podcast friends too. So I just think it's like I love that we're all still doing it and we're all finding our way in our community and it's beautiful. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, of course. But yes, my last date I went on, I think, was about a month ago. Was when our last date was.
So you guys still try to go on dates. That's what I love when like people in relationships say that they still try to date.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God, I would go on a date once a week if we could. But like Tana said, we have a 18-month-old, and so that is extremely hard to figure out, but it is absolutely worth it. Our friends also have a baby who is 8 months old, and so we have decided that like monthly we're just going to switch off with like childcare, and they get to go on a date once a month, and we get to go on a date once a month. And so we've just started doing that the past couple months. So it has been really good. This month, I don't know if a date did not happen because we had a birthday party, but we're really trying to make it happen to where we go on a date once a month. But the last date we went on was really fun. Some of our dates are like more serious, like we're gonna sit down at a restaurant, we're gonna like talk about how we're doing and our emotions and our marriage and all that. And then other dates are just like fun. Like we went to this like putt-putt place that does it's like an arcade putt-putt play, like mini golf place. So we like rode on like a zip line and like played a game while we were doing putt-putt. So it was like fun. Like we just like had a blast. We had some drinks and it was like a really good time. So that was the last date that we went on, was a fun date. And I'm sure our next date will probably be more like serious, like a check-in and all that stuff. But I think the fun dates they're some of my favorites.
We love a fun date. A
Oh
putt
yeah.
putt.
Yeah. It's a good
No,
time.
that's special, especially with your friends, like y'all trading off. That's so special. How has Okay, so you have a podcast all about purity culture, and I did not realize how much it affected me probably until this last year. Like, and it's so weird because I'm literally 29, about to be 30, and I'm like unpacking things that I didn't realize like were affecting me. So now you have you struggled a lot and you've found your way like with the painful sex, things like that. And because I mean, you got married and realized how it affected you, but I'm still a single bestie out here, like, oh my gosh, changed everything. And then you've just had the baby. So, like, how has the whole journey been of like overcoming the painful and then having the baby, like how, like, because
Hmm.
I know it takes like 2 years for your body to feel normal again after a baby. That's what I've been reading. I don't know, I keep getting
Yes.
stuff. So like you were
That's
already
funny.
you were going through a lot before then you had the baby and now, so I'm just kind of like wondering a bit about the journey.
Yeah, yeah. So as far as like the purity culture part of it, I feel like there's always levels of purity culture that I am still, or maybe not levels, there's always like pieces of purity culture that I'm like, oh, I thought that I had really overcome that. And there's times where I'm like, okay, no, I have. And then there's other pieces where I'm like, don't really know if I can like wear that right now because I feel weird about it. Not because I feel like the Holy Spirit is convicting me. It's more of just like a, is this going to be too much stomach or like or whatever, like there's still pieces that I'm like, no, I'm definitely still like living in the purity culture mindset of like, can't, gotta make sure that other people don't stumble around me and what happens to me is my fault. Like I had a video the other day just get on like the wrong side of YouTube, and a bunch of like 65-year-old men were watching a video of mine where I was talking about sex toys. And I just immediately started feeling so much shame about that. And I was like, they went and did whatever they wanted to their bodies after they watched my video, and I was like projecting. Obviously, I don't know what they did, but I felt a lot of shame, and I just felt like, oh, this is my fault. And then and I was like, that is purity culture talking to me again, like saying that like what other people do with their bodies is my fault. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like what you do with your body is your responsibility. Scripture literally says if you sin, gouge your own eye out. It does not say if you sin, gouge the person who made you sin's eye out. Like that's not what Scripture says. So the purity culture way, I feel like I have like overcome it in a lot of ways, a lot of therapy, a lot of just mental work of replacing the lies that purity culture has said with what is true and what God says about me and what is the truth. Just replacing those like I just said, the lie would be it's my fault that those men did whatever. The truth is, number one, I don't know what they did, don't need to assume. Number two is that it's not my fault. Like we're all responsible for our own sin. So I've done a lot of that. As far as the painful sex piece of it, so I did experience painful sex right after we got married. I did not know that I was going to have painful sex. I didn't have any necessarily big signs that sex was going to be painful for me. I was able to use tampons just fine, fingers totally fine. Like I just really had no expectation that sex would hurt. And then sex ended up hurting as a result of the purity culture. I just had believed that sex was bad for so long. And so my body just paid the price for that. And so after pelvic floor physical therapy, dilators, I overcame painful sex, which is great. And then since having a baby, thankfully, I feel like sex has been even better. Not, I feel like it has been. It's been even better than I could ever imagine. Getting a little spicy on the Single Besties podcast. I know, I know. But it's better than I thought. There's actually, I have not seen, and if this is out there, like I would hope someone tells me, but I have not come across when I've done my own research any science backed information for what I'm about to say, but I have heard from a lot of people who have experienced vaginismus, which is what I had, say that once they gave birth, it actually healed their vaginismus. So if they were still experiencing painful sex after they gave birth, they were not experiencing it anymore. And I was talking to my pelvic floor therapist about that, and I was already healed before I gave birth. But she was like, it's more of like a reset of your body. You're pushing a whole child out of you, and that is a big like reset for your pelvic muscles after it goes through that. Like the act of pushing someone out of you really just like resets those muscles inside of you. And she's like, I think that's why a lot of women say that they don't have like, or that they were healed after birth. And even though I was not experiencing painful sex anymore, now like it is better than I ever thought. Like I never thought it could get to like this good. Okay. Again, get a little spicy over here. I can
I
calm it
love
down.
it. No, it's
But
fun.
it's so as far as like baby stuff, it has been great. It took me a long time to like even entertain the idea of us like having sex after having a baby, because I was just like, nobody could enter, nobody could do anything, nobody could look at me, touch me, like, it's like, get away, husband. But once we felt comfortable, we were able to. It was
I
good.
love that. I feel like though there's so many like because me and my friend Roxanne were talking about it because she is from the South, and so I feel
Mm-hmm.
like when I came out here and everyone's just so much more open minded out here and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's when I started realizing that it was a problem that I had, like, that I
Mm-hmm.
thought the way that, like, that my mind was still, like, kind of, like, warped in certain ways, like, I wouldn't wear certain things or I would feel weird, and but then I'd be like, "Well, I wanna wear that, like, I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
whatever." And I feel like there's 2 ways you can go, like, for
Mm-hmm.
me when I had all the purity culture stuff, it just made me want to like explore and be like, well, if you guys are telling me not to, I'm going to do it. But then it does
Mm-hmm.
for some like go the other way, like, oh my God,
Yeah.
it's bad. I can't ever do it. Like, and so I was on
Mm-hmm.
the other end, like, oh, let me just like, whatever. And
Yeah.
so to hear your perspective, it has been like a game
Mm-hmm.
changer for me
And
because I'm,
well, what I was gonna say is it's so interesting to hear you say that because I haven't really talked about this a lot. I should talk about it more. There was like a season throughout college where I had this like guy that we never like officially dated or anything. It lasted for like 4 years, but it was like anytime we'd be together, we would like hook up. And I was always the girl who was like, I'll do everything but have sex with you. Because I was like, purity culture says you can't have sex, but they say you can do it. Really don't say you can do everything else. But it's never clear. Nobody's talking to me about what happens if you do other things before marriage or anything like that. They're just like, don't do it and good luck, don't do anything. There's just so hush hush talks about it. So in my mind, I was like, well, I'm okay, I can go do that. But I would literally get to a point where I was so like I would get it was not often I would go like see him, but it was just like every so often I would get this like urge of like I'm so tired of being perfect, I'm so tired of like doing all the quote right things that I would like go away for a weekend and I would drink and I would hook up and do all the things because and like get like so drunk because I was like I am so tired of trying to be so perfect all the time that I would literally go and like explode for a weekend and then come back and be like, God, I'm so sorry, that was so wrong, and, like go back to my church
yeah,
job and
then
be
you
like,
feel
I'm
so much
so
shame.
sorry. Yes, and I'm not saying that those were good decisions for me. Like I truly look back on that time with a lot of sadness because of who I was at the time. Like I just wish that my identity was in a different place. I wish that I, viewed sex in a healthier perspective. I don't think I would have acted that way if I was a different person. But that's what I went through. But it's just funny. Like I just about had those like weekends where I'd like freak out because I'm like, this is all so hard. Anyways, you saying that made me think of that.
No, because it's so true. Because I think like the biggest problem is teaching kids just to not do something. For me, it just makes them want to do it or like saying not. And like you've been posting a lot about it, and it's really angering me that it's getting like shadow banned and like you get those things because like I think that what you're doing is so important.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I've been getting a lot of just flagged stuff on my content. I have to like not type out the correct word, like correct name of like a body part, or if I'm saying sex, I have to like type it differently, which is literally so against what I talk about. Like I say that sex shouldn't be shameful, that the body part's not shameful, but here I am having to like change the way I write something, which is just so literally against everything I believe in. But it's because Instagram will literally tells me it's not showing my content to people, so it will like tell you. But I actually did repeal that the other day, and this morning they have now said I will show your content to everybody now. You were right, we were wrong. So that was positive. So
Thank God, because
yeah.
literally I manage social media accounts for my job. And when I go into these male accounts and I see like I am just
Yes.
inundated with half
Same.
naked.
No. I literally, my job is also managing social media accounts. And there's like this one account that I have to go to I have to do it on the computer because I literally have to put my hand up over the screen and just like decline because all of the message requests is literally porn. And I have to go on and be like, no. Like I get on the account and I'm like, oh, there's a penis. Wasn't trying to see that at my like 2 p.m. job. Like I'm just working at 2 o'clock on a Friday and I'm seeing a penis. Like that's not what I was trying to do. Anyways.
No, because like especially when you like posted that about your stuff getting like not shown to people, I'm like, then
hmm
I go onto someone's account and see that, and I'm like, it makes me so angry because you're
hmm
actually trying to help, especially girls that are
Yeah.
so like repressed in a way, not repressed, but
hmm
like don't want to talk about
Don't,
things like this, and then you can just find
yeah.
this like on Instagram now. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't
I
make sense.
know. It's the worst. It's the worst.
So recently, so this is the Single Besties podcast. And for me
Yes.
and my heart behind starting this is because I think a lot of women, especially like my age, like getting into the 30s, they think about singleness as like a curse. And as, one of my jokes is like, I never related it as much to a leper. Like people want to like isolate you and like feel like something's wrong or they want to stop they don't want to live their life until they're in a relationship. And you recently posted something that like really spoke to me because it's like you're not promised marriage, so we're not. And that does like kind of like it kind of like makes me feel some type of way sometimes because I'm like, well, I want that,
Right.
and I do
Right.
think I will
Right.
have it, and I think a lot of
Yeah.
girls like
Yeah.
want it. But can you speak on that about like how you still should like
Totally.
embrace this time and use it?
Absolutely. Well, I had posted about the Bible does not promise marriage. It was a response to a speech that went kind of viral on the internet from a football player, and he was just talking about motherhood and how being a wife and a mother is the highest calling, and that like these women who had just graduated college, like that was what their life's purpose was to be a wife and a mom. And that's a big summary of the speech, but so that just like really just reminded me that like the Bible does not promise marriage, and so many of us grew up in a culture where marriage and sex was put on such a pedestal that it was like this is the greatest thing that could ever happen in the entire world, and if you don't have it, something is wrong with you, and you're actually working your entire life to become the person that someone wants to marry. Like that's what women are being told. It's like you're working your whole life to become someone's wife. Like they would, if you grew up in any kind of church, they would always say, well, your future husband's not going to want to be with you if you've been with all these other people. Like it was never about like, well, what does God ask you to do as far as purity? It was always like, you need to protect your purity for your spouse. Like it was everything they would talk about with women was always for your spouse, for your spouse, for your spouse. Now, marriage is great. I All I wanted was to be married my whole life. I'm so thankful I'm married. Desiring marriage is not a problem. And I know that obviously Single Besties Podcast. So like people who are listening to this podcast are single, and I don't want them to think that their desire for marriage is bad, because it's absolutely not. That's a great thing to desire. It's a great thing to want. But I think so much the church and just culture in general has always said that like women don't really matter, they don't have a voice if they're not partnered with somebody, or if you're 29, it's like, oh, I'm 29 single, there must be something wrong with you, or people would be like, well, why is this person still single, which is so ridiculous, like the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There's nothing wrong with anybody if you're like 29 and single. There's nothing wrong with you. um I tell these men they need to step it up and be better, but that's a conversation for another day. Because also, I'm not a man hating person at all. Let me make that very
No.
clear. Um, with that comment, I just don't want that to be taken the wrong way. But I just believe that if you were single, you have so much purpose. I mean, if we're talking about it from a Christian perspective, Jesus was never married. He was 30, he got to be 33 and was still single. He was never married. There's plenty of people in scripture who are not married and still have a purpose. And if God had designed us to only have women to only have purpose if we were married, then he would have promised us a spouse. Like it would have been in scripture. Like, okay, if your purpose is this, then you will have a spouse. And like that is just not in the Bible anywhere. It's not talked about, it's not promised. And so your life does not just like start the day you get married either, because obviously the world that we live in now, people aren't, because in the Bible, I guess they were getting married at probably like 14, 15, I don't know, but we're obviously not, that's way too young to be getting married. And so it's not like your life is going to start once get married. There's so much value in being single and chasing after what God has called you to do, whatever you're passionate about. You're not just like sitting around waiting for that other person to come alongside you. Like you have a calling on your life, you have a passion in your life that you can chase, and it is so good for you to be chasing that. And then whenever you meet your person, ideally they would come alongside you and chase that with you, and then you guys would be partners in doing that together. But you're not any like less of a person just because you're doing it on your own. You have purpose. And when people put marriage just on a pedestal and it's like the only thing you can't, or if you're saying like when marriage is put on a pedestal, it can make you feel like you're like lacking something in your life, and can really be an open door to having a lot of your worth tied to a person, and which is not helpful, because if your worth is tied to a person that either exists or doesn't even exist yet, that's just fleeting. Like if your identity is in somebody else, or if you feel like your worth is in what someone else thinks about you or what someone might think about you in the future, that can lead to you not knowing like who you are even as a person, if you're making all your decisions based on like what your spouse would think or what your spouse would want. It's like that person might not even be there. I hope it is. If you were desiring marriage, I hope that happens for you. But if it doesn't, it's like you want to have your identity and who you are and your passions to be for you and not just for somebody else. Like you have so much worth in just who you are as a person. God created you for a reason and for a purpose, and it wasn't just to like please somebody else and be with somebody else. And that is a great thing, but it's not like the only thing that matters in life.
Totally. And I think that like I know the guy's speech you're talking about. And it makes me sad though for the girls that like that is their one dream in life is just to be a wife and be a mother, because I'm like and they're, and it's not, and I'm like, if you took some time and like invested in yourself and figured out what you're supposed to do for yourself, then it will happen like you said, like I like the analogy of like you're working on your thing, that person's working on their thing, and then you come together and it like you go up the mountain together.
Right, right, not like following after. And it's also like if you're waiting your whole life to be a wife and a mom and nothing else, it's like, and if that doesn't happen for you, then that can be really like lead a real life, like sad life. And I don't want you to have a sad life, because that's the one thing that you want is not happening. But I do say that like if that is in your boat and it hasn't happened for you yet, like I'm so sorry and I'm praying that that happens for you. Because again, like I don't want people to think it's bad to desire marriage by any means.
No.
But there's just so much beauty and there's so much beauty in the world. There's so much beauty for you to go and do the things that you were passionate about. And also, if you're just like waiting for that person just to magically show up, it's like maybe if you find the thing you're passionate about, you'll find that person because maybe they're passionate about it too. But you may not find them if you're just like sitting at home waiting for them to show up at your front door. So it's like,
Yeah.
let's do the things you're passionate about, and then hopefully that person will also be passionate about it and then show up.
I know it'd be pretty cool if you could just order one though.
I know,
Like,
oh my God, that would be so great. Like customize it, have like an Etsy husband where you're just like, I want this and this and this and this and this, and
and
here
it'd
he
probably still
comes.
be annoying.
True, you'd still have an ick. It would happen.
You would. So how did like I don't know because I'm not a how did you
Hmm.
know when you were dating Thomas? Because I we love Thomas. Thomas used to edit the podcast. Shout out Thomas.
Hmm.
Um,
He's the
how
best.
did you know when you because were you like dating other people too? How did you
Yeah,
know that you were ready to like marry this person?
totally, totally. So I was like 22. I think I got married at 23. Yeah, I got married at 23. So I remember being like 21, 22. You guys, that is so young. And I was so stressed that I was still single. Like, I look back and I'm like, sweet baby
What?
Hannah. Like, oh yeah, I was like, there is something wrong with me. I'm never gonna. I was literally 21. And I was because this is so when I knew it was Thomas was because we had actually dated in high school and we had just known each other for a million years. At that point, we had known each other for maybe not 10 years, but we had known each other for a long time. And so I knew that like I had a job. I had like graduated college or was about to graduate college. I had a job. Like I felt like I was ready for that like season of my life, even though I was such a baby. Oh my gosh. I don't regret getting married that young at all. I definitely think that was the right move for us. But I just remember like I had felt ready for that time of my life. And when Thomas and I came back into each other's lives, because we were like not in each other's lives for a while, we came back into each other's lives. We'd kind of both talked because we didn't live in the same place. And so we were kind of like, well, we either need to just get like date and get married or just like not be friends because we don't live in the same place. We both want to like date other people. And, it's totally fine to have like, friends of the opposite sex. But there's a level at some point where it's like, okay, I can't like continue to talk to a person of the opposite sex who at one point was my boyfriend like regularly. If I'm trying to date somebody, that's just not respectful to them. And so we were kind of like, we either just need to like date and get married or not be friends anymore. And we just decided to date and get married, and we got married in less than a year after that conversation. But we didn't know each other for so long. Our values were the same. We had definitely had, I mean, we weren't like the same human by any means. We had just differences, but at the end of the day, our values and our morals were the same, and what we wanted in life was the same. And we had gotten along so well, and we just really were like, okay, we are going kind of on the same path. So let's just like let's do it. And he was a year older. He's a year older than I am. So he was also just like, yeah, I'm feeling ready for that next step of my life. So we just took it together and it's worked out. So very thankful.
No, I love that. Do you think when looking for like a partner, you need to have like a list? Like, I know there's so many like girlies online that are like, have a list and
Hmm.
like don't settle until you have like, did you have a list? Like, or just more
I
so it's
definitely
morals?
had a list. No, I definitely had a list. And I can understand like having a list and not settling. Like, I'm like, yes, I do not want you to settle for anything. Like, these days we celebrate the bare minimum. And it's like, come on, we can do a
Yeah.
little bit more than the bare minimum. You deserve more than just the bare minimum. However, I feel like if you put yourself in a box, then you're not gonna like you're not open to what could come. And I feel like attraction grows when you get to know somebody for who they are. And if you're like, well, I only will date somebody who is 6'4" and ripped and blonde hair, blue eyes. And if you're saying that that's the only person you're gonna date, it's like okay, well, what if you meet that blonde hair, blue eyed guy who's 6'4" and he's a complete jerk to you, but because he's on your list of what you want for your looks, it's like, okay, you're gonna because you got that now, are you gonna just be like accepting someone to treat you poorly? But also it's like when you get to know somebody, like that's also when attraction grows because you love them and who they are, and then you just become more physically attracted to them. And so I feel like having a list just puts you in a box, but I do believe like it's important to have the same morals and the same values. So if you have that foundation, and obviously you like hanging out with the person, that's good. But I feel like that is really, in my opinion, the only thing should really be on your list is having like the same morals and same values and wanting the same things out of life. Everything else, I mean, because I mean, some people can get really specific with their lists of like, they got to do
I
this and
know.
they have to type this out and say this and look like this and act like this. It's like, okay, well, you're never going to get married. So it's too, I hate to break it to you. I'm like, no one's ever going to meet like every single requirement on your list. It's too much pressure for one person to meet either.
Mm.
It's like putting way too much pressure on one other person to fulfill you. Like your partner should not fulfill you or complete you. Like I saw your post about that the other day, and I was like, yes, like I'm good on my own. I don't need someone to complete you. They can compliment you, which is a great
Yeah.
thing to have, but complete you, it's like no, you're good on your own.
Yeah, and that's what I think this time is so good for. Like, I'm not half of a person. Like, I am,
Right.
I've obviously, like, I'm 29, so I've had relationships. I just, got
Hmm.
out of one. So it's like, I'm not ready to get back in another one. Some people are like, oh my God,
Yeah.
well, you're getting older. Like, you need to get, I'm not ready to get in one. I know that about
Yeah.
myself.
No.
I'm not ready
Yeah.
because I would be coming in as half of a person right now and I
Yeah.
would be looking for that person to heal me or that person to fulfill me, but they
Hmm.
just don't because I'm not
Right.
half. I don't want you to be half because then we just make
Right.
one. I want us to both be whole so we can be two people.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And it wouldn't be fair to the person that you're with. If you're feeling like you're not ready, you just jump into that. It's like that's not fair to them. They're not going to be able to meet that need that you're having at that moment. It's best to be confident in yourself and who you are because if you put your worth and value in somebody else that is fleeting, it's going to be up and down constantly. So you have to have your identity and be strong in who you are. I mean, I'm a Christian, so my identity is in Christ, and that's never changing. Like I know what Christ says about me, regardless of what someone else says about me. I know what Jesus says about me, and that's where my identity lies. Everything else is fleeting and up and down. People are fleeting and up and down. And so having your identity in not another person is key.
That's really refreshing to hear too, because I feel like so many girls are just like wanting to get married, wanting it because they feel like it's gonna fill something up in them. And you're saying like it's not
Hmm.
gonna fill you up. Like
No,
you still are gonna have the same,
same problems.
your junk
A lot
still
of
follows you.
Yes, a lot. I hear a lot of people say like if they're dating, they're like, "Oh, well, once we're married, that will just fix that problem," or "Once we're engaged, that's going to fix that problem." No, it's only going to make it worse. Like it's only going to exaggerate the problem. If you're having these problems and you're like, "Oh, marriage will just fix that," marriage is not just the fix all of your issues by any stretch of the matter.
No, that's good though. That's a word right there in itself that just getting married is not gonna fix itself.
Mm-mm, no.
And like even like what you said earlier, it made me think of something like not like you have to think about the other person. Like if I were to just jump into something right now, I think we forget that men have feelings too. Like
They totally do. They totally do. And they have value too. And they matter too. And I know I just like made a mean comment about men earlier, but like they're important. And the way that we talk about men
yes.
matters. We should call them to act higher and be better. But they matter too. You don't want to waste their time. It's not fair to them. They're a person too.
Yeah, like I used to have to not yell at people, but like get on to people in the
Hmm.
Facebook group because I'm like, this is not a man hating group. Just because we're a bunch of
No.
single women, we don't come on
Hmm.
here and trash men. Like I believe that good men exist. Like
They absolutely do.
I have enough examples of good men in my life
Good.
to know that good
Totally.
men do
And
exist.
if you always have that in your mind, then you're never going to be happy with someone. Because if you're always like, well, men always suck and men always do this, then it's like, okay, well, there could be a good man in front of you, but you're labeling him as bad because you're labeling all men as bad. And so in your mind, he's going to do something or mess something up because he's just a man. And you're not going to be able to actually see them for who they are because you have that like glossy view or it's like a film over your eyes, when looking at them. And that's not fair.
Mm. This has been so good, Hannah. I love this. I
Oh,
love you,
thanks.
and
Me
I appreciate
too.
you
Love
coming
you.
back. I appreciate you coming back on. We do end with a question though, and I know you're
Of course.
married, you got the baby, but we want to know
Hmm.
like what is an ick that you have?
Yes, no, this is so real. And I knew that you were going to ask that question, so I've been thinking about it all day. And I hate that my answer is not revolutionary. Like, this is not like you guys are like, oh my God, that's so crazy, because it's like one that so many people have, but it is truly my ick. And if you were going to ask my husband what my ick is, he would say this. And I should have asked him beforehand so I could like prove to you guys. I cannot stand when, and this is not, I have to say my husband in particular because he is the one I am married to and I love him with all my heart, but I cannot stand when he eats his food. The way that and he is the only person that I have this ick with. He will chew his food and I would just stare at him like into his soul and be like, I need you to go eat in the other room. Like, I don't know what it is. Like the way that I've never actually not made him get up from the table, but it literally makes me want to jump out of my skin. He's the only person I have this problem with. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the way he chews. Like I said, this is not revolutionary. Like a lot of people have problems with
I
this,
can't
but
stand watching people chew.
he's the only person though. It's not like I have this like in general, like this general thing. He is the only one. And he even the other day was like, you don't have a problem when Tate eats. Like you like watching him eat. And I'm like, yeah, because he's cute and the way he eats that is the most precious way anyone could ever eat a veggie straw in our lives. Like I love him with all my heart. I birthed him. Of course I like the way that he chews that veggie straw. He literally came out of my body. What do you mean? But my husband, if he eats a veggie straw, oh my God, it makes me want to crawl out of my skin. I can't do it. I don't know what it is. I wish I had an answer for you. I wish I had like a better answer. And I also all think it's like there's got to be something more like unique and more unique ick. But no, I am just like everybody else and can't stand when he eats. And I wish there was something more revolutionary than that. But that's all I got.
No, it's
That's my
relatable, and
biggest
it's
one.
relatable for a reason. Like we've all
So
been there.
true.
How do you go
Yeah.
on dates though? Do you like get annoyed on date? Like
I really have to push
your
through.
face.
I
Your
really have to push through. Like, no, it's so real. It's a problem. It's a true problem. I have to push through. Like, I will just, thankfully, if we're at a restaurant, it's usually like a louder restaurant. You hear like people talking, people eating, like there's commotion. When we're at our house, like, I mean, not that it's quiet, like we definitely talk when we eat, but you know, it's just like you can hear things more when it's just like in your own home. So thankfully, when we're out in public, it's just like more loud and more distracted. But just watching him eat too, I just have to look away. Like, it's really hard for me. And I, yeah, it's
No,
it's just hard.
I love
We make
that.
it work.
I
Yeah.
love that. So what are you working on? Where can people find you? What's going on in the Say What
Thanks.
community?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at say.what podcast. And I'm also on YouTube. That's where I'm really trying to grow right now is on YouTube. So I'm starting to film some YouTube videos outside of my just podcasts being on YouTube. I think there's actually one going up today. So that'll be fun. But I am just trying to be, more on YouTube. I have started posting some clips on TikTok. So I am on TikTok at Say What Podcast. I'm gonna be so honest with you guys. TikTok terrifies me. People are so mean on TikTok, so I'm just like, I post and pray. I'm like, please be nice to me. And
You
if
just
you're mean to
post
me,
and don't look. You
I
can't
know,
look. That's you
I
gotta
know,
like not look because
I know.
they were calling me. Remember when they called me Jezebel and I got off TikTok for like
Mm-hmm.
6 months? So
Yeah, yeah. No, it's
don't
gonna
let them
happen.
stop you.
I have gotten definitely mean comments on Instagram. Someone told me on Instagram that my face should be the poster child for abstinence. Like if people look at my face, they would be abstinent. And I was like, cool.
Oh, they
This was like a recent thing. Someone also told me that I look like I have fetal alcohol syndrome. So I'm doing really good. That was a girl. That was a girl. I commented back to her and I was like, how incredibly weird and rude for you to say to me on the
mm.
internet, for you to say to someone on the internet. And then they didn't delete their comment. So,
The meanest comments I've ever got have been from YouTube. So just because I
ooh,
don't, that
good to
algorithm is a different
know.
beast. So
It
if you
is
start posting
different.
shorts, the meanest
Mm-hmm.
comments I've ever got are from
Great.
YouTube.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
But it's
Thomas handles my YouTube, so I don't even really look at those things. So I'll tell him that like if there's anything
yes.
I need to see or if there's anything mean, don't ever tell me.
Yeah,
I'll do
no,
that.
because you need to grow. That's the best like
Hmm.
monetization one. So good luck on the YouTubes.
Thank you. I'm trying. That's the goal. But yeah, you guys can follow me there. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, well, I love you. I mean it. Thank you for doing
Yes, I
this.
love you. Yes, thank you for having me. It was so fun.
We'll do another one in 4 more years.
Sounds good. I know. Thank you for having me.
Okay, I'm gonna end this now. Bye, besties.